The Game Schooler podcast is a weekly audio show that educates new and experienced gamers about the awesomeness of tabletop gaming. In this week's episode, we'll cover Vegas Showdown, our game of the week, discuss reviewers going too far in the school of gaming, and wrap it up by revealing our high five memory games. Welcome to the Game Schooler podcast. I'm your host, Doug Kotecki, along with my co-host, Dr. Michael McCabe. How's it going, Michael?
What's going on, Doug? How are you?
Oh, I'm pretty good.
Good.
The hand is healing. We're doing great.
I wondered about that. You know, people on the Discord. I'm not going to say I got any private messages, but as I was uploading the video to Board Game Geek and I saw your hand, I thought, is this the traumatic injury? Okay, I need to call him out. So I did. That was me.
That was you calling me out. I told you I used my left hand, Michael. Only my left hand is visible in the latest videos.
Okay.
The so right hand was
it truly
under
was
wraps.
mangled, huh?
Not that I wanted to be showing it up in
like Happy Gilmore style.
Yeah. I was like Chubbs. Not that I wanted to show it zoomed in on camera for people to analyze. Crusty scabs and things. Gugh. I hate when that happens.
Oh, okay. Well, life of a reviewer, Doug, right?
Yeah.
We often hear about in the industry.
I've got some interesting follow-up. Speaking of our Discord, I thought Anitra made a great point on last week for the School of Gaming. We were talking about the pros and cons of variable setup, and she had mentioned that they use it as kind of an equalizer in leveling the playing field when they play with new gamers, and used Quacks of Quedlinburg as an example of using cards and abilities that they don't normally play with, so that the people that are familiar with the game can't go to a well-run strategy that they have. And I thought that was a great idea, because I feel like that's one of the hardest things I have introducing people to games is, and just not necessarily even introducing it, but just running into that issue where, what do you do when one or two people at the table know how to play a game and the other person or the other two people don't know how to play a game?
Yeah.
And kind of balance it so everyone is kind of competing at the same level. And there's a lot of games that people talk about where it's like, I don't want to play this with new players, and just kind of, you know, feeling like there's a little bit of a roadblock sometimes. It's like, oh, I really want to play this, but everybody else knows how to play this, and the other person's just going to get rolled because they don't know the ins and outs of the game. Where sometimes I really enjoy the process of developing not developing, that's not the right word, but embarking on a game with all new players. So everybody at the table is new, and it's like, we're all coming at this in square one. Is really refreshing and something I enjoy doing.
Yeah, you love those teaching and learning games as a moment to dominate and test an efficient strategy for the first time with everybody, right? Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, no, that's a great call out by you, though. And Anitra on our Discord also has a podcast, The Family Gamers. We have been on their show. Andrew and Anitra have also been on our show. So that's awesome. That's a great follow-up. My turn for follow-up?
Yeah. Take it away.
I have some follow-up as well. Back in episode 213, we had Andrew from the Op on for a Publisher Spotlight segment. Doug, do you recall such segment? Said segment? Yes. And I'm following up today based on a game that he had sent me, Monopoly, Gilmore Girls edition. And I'm not going to
just follow up, not what's awesome.
I'm merging both. Thank you. I'm not going to dive too deeply into the Gilmore Girls lore, franchise, IP, legend, whatever have you. I'm going to talk more about Monopoly because I grew up playing a lot of Monopoly. Did you, Doug?
Not really.
Okay. And I mean, we played by the rules. There were also McCabe rules. There were McDonald rules. There were Ryder rules. So based on the set of cousins that I played with or grandparents, the rules might have shifted. And well, the 2025 rules as written are a tremendous upgrade from any Monopoly I ever played. It actually says the rules on the front of the book say house rules could be making your game longer. And it's bold in like a call out box. And so some of the rules of Monopoly have actually been streamlined. Specifically, when you land on a property, you have 3 options. You can buy, do nothing, or put it up for auction. So you're incentivized.
I thought it always went up to auction. I didn't even know that the option was to do nothing. I'm pretty sure. I thought that it was you either have to buy it or auction it. But
no, see that's not how I played it. I'm going to keep it moving. Because I'm not the resident Monopoly expert. But there were some other rules in that game specifically. Tell me if this is how you remember playing Monopoly.
Okay.
That once you have all 3 properties, let's say if there are 3 properties and you have a Monopoly.
Yeah.
That the houses must be built on the Monopoly in an even order. That you must build 1, 1, 1, 2, 2, 2, or could you just load up 4 houses and turn that into a hotel right away? That's how it was when I was a kid. You could load that thing up.
I was under the impression that they had to be loaded evenly.
Oh, see, so apparently I played Monopoly wrong my entire life, and now I'm learning that there is a right way to play it.
Yeah.
But anyways, I absolutely loved the game. And, it'd been 30 years since my last play of Monopoly, at least, and I forgot how much I do enjoy it. My wife and daughter still thought the game was a bit long, but I am a fan, and I'm not going to say I'm going to collect them all. I'm not going to Pokemon the Monopoly series, but I'm on the look for that Sopranos edition, which is currently out of print.
And is the only variance is just the name of the properties and then some of the cards? There's no...
Well, I'd like to take a moment to
differences.
highlight that.
Okay.
There were some very thematic tie-ins with this Gilmore Girls edition. It was quite detailed. The properties, the money. You're building flower boxes instead of houses and hotels. It was really well done. In terms of the actual gameplay itself, no, I'm fairly certain it plays similarly from other Monopoly. Yeah. But I wanted to, thank Andrew for sending along a copy to review. I don't know if we can count this as a full review. Maybe we'll have to do an offline video for a special request at some point. But now we can let the Monopoly
You've done enough, Michael.
hate ensue. Boy, people do not like that game. I posted a few pictures of the Discord, and not that I got blasted or anything, but when you see the ratings on Board Game Geek and just the comments on Board Game Geek, and
the way that you posted it was pretty intense. I think somebody did say blink if you're in danger, and it did sound like that. It sounded like you were being forced to say that unnaturally. It didn't.
What are you talking about?
It didn't come out like, hey, this is a great game. It was like, oh my gosh, this is a great game.
It is a great game. Okay, imagine for a moment that you grew up doing something.
Mm-hmm.
30 years go by. Go ahead.
Yeah.
What are you going to
Watching Gilmore Girls.
No.
Okay, go ahead.
But 30 years go by, you rediscover that thing, and you're like, this is actually awesome.
Yes.
Monopoly is actually awesome.
I agree. When played by the actual rules, which most people don't, as you've already addressed and the op has addressed, it is fine. And it moves fast, especially... Like, the only way that I knew that you couldn't, basically a property wasn't going to be purchased is if everybody literally passed in the auction. So you could say, I don't want to buy it, but I'm going to put it up for auction. Everybody could theoretically pass on it, and then it wouldn't get bought. But other than that, once people are being forced to or buying up properties at an alarming rate, those monopolies happen faster, people run out of money faster, and it just goes faster. So that big thing, I do remember having marathon games as a child of, oh, okay, well, yeah, I'm not buying that. You get 20 turns of nobody buying anything because they didn't land on Park Place.
Yeah.
You're just waiting. So, yeah, I definitely I definitely hear you. And somebody shouted out Monopoly Deal, which is a great fast card game. No, it was, I think Elizabeth might have done that.
Okay.
I just followed up that it is a great streamlined, fast game of Monopoly. So check that out. Pivoting into what's awesome for gaming, you hit on it a little bit, which is I wanted to just do a shout out to publishers. And not necessarily the idea of like, oh, publishers are great because sometimes we get free games. That's not the point. The point is, and we'll probably address this a little bit later in the School of Gaming, is the awesomeness that publishers are putting their time, their money, developing games, and being in the arena to put a game and produce a game is really cool. And the fact that there are platforms like Kickstarter and different crowdfunding things to GameFound for smaller publishers to have an idea and run with it, even if it, doesn't work and maybe it becomes a huge hit. But to all of the publishers out there that are putting in time, effort, money, and like I said, being in the arena, producing games that we can enjoy is pretty awesome.
That is awesome. I have one other thing that's awesome and slightly a follow-up adjacent. Back in episode 123, Doug, do you know what game of the week that was by chance?
That was New York, 1908.
Back in episode 123, our game of the week was Scribbly Gum by Phil Walker Harding. And
meant to say that.
If you sign up, I think it just came to my inbox because I'm signed up for Phil Walker Harding's newsletter, or else I'm a super fanboy. I don't know the exact reason. But there's a new sheet out for Scribbly Gum. And I thought, boy, that's a great way to continue to support the game. He developed a new map, Kalamata, and within that newsletter, he also brought to attention how much money he and his wife had raised for koalas in Australia through their foundation and through selling some games. And I just thought that's really cool. So adjacent to your publisher shout out, I do love when people support their games and continue to just expand those universes, right? I didn't have to go out and pay $9 for an expansion. I just need to find a friend with a color printer and get this printed 4 or 5 times, and we'll be able to go.
Yeah.
So that's that. I thought that was cool.
Yeah, publishers doing awesome things. People doing awesome things is a great thing there. All right, let's move on to the Spotlight game this week. Today, we're going to be talking about Stalk Exchange, which came out in 2024 from the Op Games designer Christopher Ryan Chan, and the artist is Diana Beltran Herrera. 2 to 5 players, 45 minutes, ages 10 plus. This is going to be a family game. In the vibrant gardens of the community hedge fund, cunning gardeners vie to grow the most valuable blooms. Will you plant the seeds of profit, trade shrewdly, or manipulate the market to cultivate the ultimate floral fortune? In Stock Exchange, players take the role of gardeners, planting and trading flowers to build a hidden portfolio of valuable stocks. Each player starts with a random portfolio of flower tokens, a garden shed to keep everything hidden, and a few seedy business tokens for special actions. Gameplay unfolds on a garden board and market board where players aim to increase the value of their chosen flowers, dahlias, daffodils, globe masters, snowdrops, or tulips. On your turn, you take 2 basic actions. You can plan to select a flower token from the stock exchange and place it bulb side up in an empty garden space. Surround the group of flowers with bulbs to harvest them, boosting their value on the market track. Or you can swap to trade a flower token from your portfolio with one on the stock exchange, adjusting your holdings to match the rising trends. You can't plant directly from your shed, so swapping is key. You can repeat the same action or mix them, and at any point spend seedy business tokens for extra actions, like flushing the exchange to refresh all flowers. But spend wisely. These tokens don't replenish. After actions, an upkeep phase flips bulbs to flowers if they have space, harvests surrounding flowers to increase their market value, and updates the market track. The game ends when harvested flowers meet or pass the highest stock value token. Then, in a twist, the highest value flower crashes, having its worth. Players reveal their portfolios, multiply each flower's count by its final value, and total their scores. The gardener with the most points wins. Can you outmaneuver your rivals to grow a blooming empire, or will your portfolio wither when the market crashes? So that is how you play Stock Exchange. Michael, what do you like about this one?
I really like the components, Doug.
That was the first thing I put on my list too.
Yeah, this is a game where I kind of thought I was going to like it. I mean, we saw it at Gen Con. I am a fan of stock games, whether it's Stockpile or Speculation has been a game of the week here on the show in the past. I like being able to buy, sell, manipulate. But what I really like is attention that builds to the final turn, because you have one of the flowers that is pushing ahead, but whatever is the highest at the end gets halved. So there's that tension of, I think I know what the other person has, but I don't really know what flowers they're holding on to, especially if I'm playing with more than just one player. I think I can have an idea, but I really like that flow of the game, and it happens fairly quickly. What did you say is the overall gameplay of this that they advertise?
About 45 minutes.
Yeah, and most of the games that we've played and that I've played online in Board Game Arena have been right around a half hour. So good little game, great tension that's happening at the table. How about you? What stands out for you, Doug?
Well, I think it's a very interesting game, although it's not my go-to stock market game. It really has one that you can manipulate, that manipulation aspect is down. A lot of the games are, trying to predict what may happen. This one actually has a manipulation of moving which flowers are going to become more valuable and things like that. And it's manipulation with what you have in your portfolio, so changing that out from time to time, along with, placing those flowers out onto the board. But then there's the spatial element to that, right? Yeah. That's not just, the values of these are increasing. It's like, yeah, the values of that will increase if they blossom and you can get them off of the board and into the track there to increase their value. And I like that about that game, because there are parts where you can this is going to be hard to complete. And so you can kind of stack stuff in a corner.
If it gets too big on your tableau, if all of a sudden you have 15 roses out in front of you, that it's going to be hard to actually close it off and score it? Or what do you mean?
Correct.
It's going to be hard
yes. To harvest them in order to add their value to the market board. Otherwise, they just stay there, and they can only complete if are fully surrounded. Yeah. And sometimes and when it becomes a cluster, the whole cluster needs to be surrounded. So you can get this really big thing of 5 or 6 roses all bundled together, but it just keeps getting manipulated in a way those are never going to blossom and never go up in value. And so there's this weird spatial part of the game is how you manipulate the stocks, as opposed to a lot of games where it's just, I'm playing these cards down, or we're picking these cards up, so there's more variety, more available, or we're adding routes. This one feels unique in that there is a real spatial level of this board into how you manipulate the market. So I think that's really cool.
Yeah, the other thing that I like about that is you have 2 bonus actions that are available through the entire game. So on my turn, if I get a sense that either, this thing is going to end quickly, or I'm really in trouble because I don't have any of the stocks that are certainly going to score points, you can actually trade out from the stocks that you have, as Doug mentioned in the overview, versus the stocks that you've planted. So as potential stocks are coming up that I could plant, and I'm drawing those, I can swap those as an action, which early in the game, it's like, why would I ever do that? But then as soon as you start to see what's scoring out, it's like, well, I've got to get a couple points here. So I guess even for folks who are risk adverse, or who want to take a very prudent approach, you're able to do that. You have some options to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. Great game. Anything else that you want to talk about before we move on?
I do. There's one other thing that I want to say. I led with the production value or with the production of the components and how good it is. I mentioned that I really like stock games, so I was biased and kind of thought that this is one that I was going to like. But folks, if you've only played this on Board Game Arena, the wooden pieces, the cloth bag, the actual being able to move things around and manipulate, it's top notch for bang for your buck type game. You know, I almost feel like there's something with flowers and components. You know, Planted was a game from Phil Walker Harding and Buffalo Games where it's like, man, how did they get this at this price point? And I feel that same way about Stalk Exchange with the op. And if you're trying to spell that at home, it's STALK, Stalk Exchange. So pardon our Wisconsin accent if some of that's coming in with either one of us. But no, great game, fun game, and a hidden gem. I mean, right now currently ranked 9,424 on Board Game Geek at the time of this recording. And I hope it doesn't just disappear. You know, a 2024 release that I hope sticks around. The last thing that I wanted to add, very easy to teach. This is a dead simple teach. You can take 2 or 3 practice turns and then, okay, now we're going to start over and we're going to play proper. So,
yeah. And the components, it's has the feel of a deluxe game, even though it's not deluxe. Is the way I would kind of put it, where you're opening it up and the wood pieces and everything fitting together. You're like, wait, this isn't like a deluxe Kickstarter version. The components are really good. So that is our spotlight game this week, Stalk Exchange from the Op Games. All right. Want to remind everybody to watch and subscribe and like our YouTube channel. We appreciate that. Spread the word about the podcast and leave a review on your platform of choice. And if you have any questions or comments, reach out to us, email at gameschooler.com. We would love to hear from you. Now let's move on to the game of the week.
The game of the week. The game of the week is an in-depth look at a family-friendly game we think you should try if you get the chance. This week's game is Vegas Showdown, designed by Henry Stern, with a first edition published in 2005. This review will focus on the third edition published by Renegade Game Studios in 2024. Playtime of 15 minutes per player, and you could play with 3 to 5 players. Ages 12 plus by the publisher, 10 plus by Board Game Geek community. This is a family game. Doug, give us the overview.
In the glitzy heart of Las Vegas, you and your millionaire rivals have 1 year to build the ultimate hotel casino on a prime strip of land. Will you outbid your opponents to snag the best attractions, or will your dreams of fame flicker out under the neon lights? In Vegas Showdown, players take on the role of wealthy investors bidding on tiles to construct the most fabulous hotel casino and claim the entire block. Each player starts with a personal casino board, a stack of money tokens, and a hunger for glory. The game unfolds over several rounds on a central board displaying room tiles like slots, lounges, restaurants, and even premier tiles like 5-star steakhouses or nightclubs. Each round, players lower the minimum bid on premier tiles, draw event cards to shake up strategy, like boosting income or fame, and then place bids on tiles to expand their casinos. On your turn, choose one of 3 actions. You can place a marker on a tile's bid track to outbid rivals to secure high-value rooms. But beware, overpaying drains your funds. If you win the bid, place a tile on your casino board and connect to existing rooms to boost fame or income. The publicity action allows you to gain fame points directly, and the renovate action lets you rearrange tiles on your casino board to optimize connections. The catch? Tiles must fit your board's layout, and some require specific connections, like slots needing a casino entrance. The game ends when a player fills their casino board or no premier tiles remain. Players score fame from their tiles, connected rooms, and event bonuses with extra points for population and income milestones. The player with the most fame wins. Can you outbid the crown jewel of Can you build the crown jewel of the Vegas Strip, or will your casino flop like a bad lounge act? So, Michael, that is the overview. What do you like about this one? What about the gameplay?
I love the bidding and the building, and just kind of thinking about how I'm going to map out the best casino floor and get everything connected. There's a great little push and pull of competitiveness at the table with other players who are also trying to build out their casino as well. So there'll sometimes be a run on a very specific object, which might allow me to just sneak into something else. But I like that progressive building where bidding, not building, bidding where you are forced to bid higher. And it's just combined with the puzzle of building out the casino. How about you, Doug?
Well, I think it's got a great classic feel. This game came out in 2005, and it has the hallmarks of what a great game at that time.
Have you been in my run sheet? I got to go change my whole final thought now. All right, go ahead.
But it does what it does well without trying to push it too far, right? Yeah, and a lot of games now would put, we're going to have these elements, and we're going to have things going on over here, and do this, and
what's
this
piece
collection.
For? Oh, it's for a specific module that you have to plug in. Yeah,
and so this one just does what it does, and it does it really well. It also has one of my favorite bidding styles, which is also in a game called Stockpile, which is there are bidding tracks, and you have to go higher. And then if you go higher, you bump that person, they get their token back, and then they can place it again. They can go somewhere else, go higher. But I like that it's kind of, I don't want to say like regimented, but it's structured. It's not, okay, everybody put coins in their hand, and then whoever has the most is going to win. And it's not just like, I'll give you 5, I'll give you 4, going around the table and just escalating. It's like, no, I place that bid marker, and you get bumped. And it's a little bit more of a, I don't want to say gentle bidding, because bidding can be mean, but it's structured in a way that I think it keeps the game moving. And it's like, and some of them jump. It's not just a 1. It's like you're going from 12 to 14. So,
or 12 to 17,
Yeah.
And
so I like that style of bidding.
Yeah, that's a great call out. I think the other thing that style of bidding works great for different styles of game players, right? So I can bluff. I can go in on the 17, being certainly convinced that you sitting to my left will go up to the 21, or the guy on my right's going to go up to 21. And then all of a sudden, I'm stuck with that building for 17 because nobody else bid on it, right?
Yeah.
So it allows for people who enjoy bluffing and want to be hyper aggressive, and also people who are conservative and will never bluff. If they're bidding there because they want that property to come into their casino.
Yeah.
So that I also enjoy that type of bidding. I love how the bonuses work together, man. I just felt like the incentives in Vegas Showdown are right. If you connect, help me out with what I'm about to say, because there are certain upgrades that if you connect all four of the corners, you're going to get an additional bonus.
Yeah.
And early in the game, it's like, oh, that'll be easy. I'll be able to do that. And then all of a sudden, about the halfway points, I'm not going to get any of those bonuses. So it just, from the initial teach and the initial play, it's like, this is going to be easy. I'm going to be able to build the most awesome casino, except every other player at the table is trying to do the same thing. And there's just a great little tug of war match.
Yeah, there's bonuses for you have a casino entrance and a hotel entrance to your board, and so you want to put restaurants on one side and casinos on the other one. You can get points if you can make a walkable path all the way through the casino. New rooms that you have to add need to connect back to one of the entrances, so you can't just have it out in the middle of nowhere, which and then you can get more points if you fill up your entire board completely as well. The other thing I really like about this is 2 things. One of them is the decreasing minimum bid for the premier buildings. So there are random premier buildings that come out depending on player count and how many people are there. And they come out with like a starting bid, and it might be $45 is the minimum bid. But each round that gets cheaper and cheaper. And it becomes a thing of like, okay, when's the best time to jump in on one of these? And maybe it's a little bit higher, but I know I want to pay it now and get it, or can I let that go a little bit longer, and maybe the other people are going to be out of money and I'll be able to snag it for cheap. The other part is how those tiles get on the board. So as somebody buys one, there are event cards that are flipping over every round. The event cards tell you what size tile you're going to replace that premium tile with. But it also adds game-changing events every time, which is like, maybe this round you can't bid on stock or slots. Maybe you can't bid on one of the premier tiles, or maybe it's a bonus that everybody's getting.
To pay a neighbor, and all of a sudden the exact dollar value that you had figured out to get that premium tile, you're $1 short, and you just got to deal with it because this is Vegas. It's not always going to be nice.
Yeah, it's the right amount of variety to keep things interesting that you can't min-max and perfectly plan every turnout, because there are twists that are happening that may railroad your plans.
Yeah.
How about the production, Michael?
Production's solid. I mean, production is solid. I don't want to just trash on Avalon Hill or Wizards of the Coast, who had the previous editions, but this is a game that I'd heard about. Anyone in the hobby who follows the Dice Tower and likes to consume a lot of board game media, you'll hear about Vegas Showdown. And so this was one that when Renegade Game Studio said they were coming out with a third edition, I was excited to try and play. It's solid. It's a perfect amount. How about you?
Well, the art is bright and vibrant, which I think is really good. That makes it seem fresh. To your point,
it's modern Vegas. It's not stale Vegas. Yeah.
The carpet stained cigarette butt Vegas. This is glitzy glamour Vegas.
Family friendly modern Vegas.
Yes, correct. And to your point, I can't speak on the quality of the original, but it was something that I always heard of, like, they're little paper mats, and it's just a great game that I wish had a better production. This version is fine. It does everything it needs to do. I never felt like, oh, this is lacking on any front. The only thing that I would say is that if you've got some poker chips lying around, would really spruce up the game as far as the money, which are just cardboard tokens in the game. But you can get those fairly inexpensive these days on Amazon or things like that. But if you add something like that to the game, it's going to feel deluxe right away without much effort. Anything else on production?
Not on production. Let's shift into things to be aware of. The one thing that I have on the top of my list is 3-player minimum. So games that are in that 3 to 5 range, those work for a lot of groups, but for some groups it just doesn't. And I'm not sure if there was a 2-player bot. I know we didn't look at that. We played it at 3.
I don't think so.
So I wanted to just call that out. And then the other thing to be aware of, I didn't notice anything inappropriate. I was kind of expecting, Vegas Showdown. Okay, it's Vegas, and so I think it's good for our listeners to be aware of that. I know we have a lot of educators, a lot of folks who take their games in and out of community centers and schools and playing with other people's kids, and this is one that I wouldn't hesitate, bringing to the table. So
yeah, the only things I have, which are kind of on the, I don't want to say the production end, but just things that just to be aware of, right? It's things to be aware of. The Premier tiles have a chunky disc that they use as a starting bid marker, and it's a red disc that goes over the number, so you can still see the number, but it's in my opinion, it's too thick, and I would have preferred like a cheap old little tiddlywink that's flat. We had some issues where people were like looking across the table and couldn't quite tell what number it was actually on, and it made it harder to see. So in that case, it's like I think they almost made it too fancy. That wasn't necessary, even though the other thing would look cheap. It may actually be more functional. And then the other thing is that the bid tracks for the Premier tiles are diagonal. There's an upper row and a bottom row. So there were times where while we were playing, we didn't realize like, oh, we can bid there. It's not that big of a jump up. You go up, down, up, down, up, down. And so there were moments where if you're not paying attention to that, you can be like, oh, I'm boxed out of that one. And it's like, no, there's another spot that you can bid right above it. So just wanted to point those things out for people as well.
Yeah, that's good. I'll just jump in, and not to be contrary because those are your points, but for $40, which is what Renegade has this game on their website for right now, I was impressed. In terms of a solid little game there. So just throwing that in. But yeah, you're right. Those were two things that we certainly struggled with in our initial play, didn't we?
Yeah, nothing taking away from the production whatsoever. They're just kind of quirky choices that maybe could have been handled a little bit better or more streamlined, maybe. What do you got for skills, Michael?
Well, I have 3, and then I also am curious where you think this fits best in the age rank that's on Board Game Geek. So I have a few other things, but the first skill is spatial perception, and that's a skill that I know that you usually bring to the segment when we talk about it. But yeah, I can win. What is it? What's a fancy buffet called? There was an awesome buffet.
I think it's just called the buffet.
The buffet. Well, it looked awesome, and it was going to give me some money early. But then where am I going to fit that thing so that people can still walk around the casino? Yeah. And that choice of spatial perception doesn't just come in the back end of the game. It's also there on the front end. And I feel I really enjoy how the bidding and my casino can work together. And I can also just take a peek at what other folks are doing. So it's not just my board that I'm worried about. If I look at the person to my right and they have a bunch of open space and the person to my left is basically about to end the game by filling up the casino, I can kind of get a sense of where I'm going to finish. So that spatial perception, I thought, is a relevant skill. Absolutely.
Yeah, I think another great skill in this game is patience, which is a game that helps players remain calm and better tolerate delays. There are going to be times in this game where you get outbid, and it's not a resilience thing. Sometimes you would think of like, oh, you're getting outbid, and that's a bummer, and try and recover from that with resilience. But for me, it's a patience thing where it's like, maybe you could do that bid, but I'm just going to wait. And next turn, I'm going to have a really good turn because I'm going to have twice as much money, and Michael's going to have spent all of his, or
likely.
Yeah, maybe I'm going to forego those slots this round, or maybe I thought I was going to get a premier one, but I'm going to get something cheaper and then kind of save up. And I felt like this game had cycles of sometimes you're flush with cash and then you're not. Yeah. And you got to build up a little bit before you can attack the board again, right? And so
absolutely.
That ebb and flow to me, I think, is just a great patience builder in the idea of like, waiting for something good to happen, but to actually practice when being patient is the right choice from a gameplay perspective, is that maybe you should just wait a little bit, even though you're not going to get a building or a room this turn. So I thought that was an interesting one that presented itself in this game that I wasn't expecting.
That is a good call out. And I have risk management, a game in which players must identify, evaluate, and prioritize options to reduce the impact of unfortunate events or risks, knowing when to bid and when to really push it and when to optimize and maybe get one of those premium buildings. Because as Doug mentioned, look, if I spend $38, that means the next 2 rounds, I'm not really going to be able to get anything cool in my casino. Yeah. I'm going to have to save and maybe just do a little bit of work and do some odds and ends to build up for the next cool thing. So even in the initial game, there was that sense of almost uncertainty, I would put it, about, well, am I able to wait one more round before I get that buffet? Yeah. I don't know. Is he going to want a second buffet over there? What is he building?
Probably.
So what you put as patience, I brought risk management in, and really in the bidding and knowing how far to push it and when to push it. And I think for young gamers, that's an awesome skill.
Yeah, I think another one is Personal Responsibility, a game that highlights the cause and effect nature of players' actions and the related results.
It's not my fault.
Yeah. When you place those building or those tiles down, those rooms into your casino, they're there unless you want to take a renovate action,
which is lame.
It doesn't feel great. So it's that thing of like, I'm trying to put them the best possible way that I can, and then you get a little bit down the line and you're like, this would actually be better if it was up here, and you either have to live with it or renovate it. And I like that. There's a sense of permanence to it, but not in a really detrimental way, right? You can fix it, but you'd rather not. And I like the way that works in this game. Anything else for you, Michael?
No, those are the two big ones. I have some other skills that I wrote down, but I feel like I've been saying them week after week. How about you?
The only other thing I wanted to mention, and it doesn't really come up as a skill that I think that develops in this game, so it's not a skill development, but it is something that happens during this game that I think is really cool. Anytime that you're building something, and you're building something in a game, there are opportunities for you to talk about it. And I think that there is a level of group discussion in this game as people start building their casinos one way or the other, where it's like, Michael, geez, you're going heavy into slots, and you're like, bring the money in, and the other person's getting a bunch of restaurants and things like that. And so your casinos start having a personality of their own just based on how the game progresses. And I think it's very common for folks to talk about and have ownership of their casino while the game is going on. And I think it's one of the things that makes the game fun is, oh yeah, of course I'm going to put this, giant buffet right in the front.
Buttering. It's banter. Yeah. It's that next level above. I'm not just talking to myself. I'm letting everybody else know what's happening over here at this casino.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is
great,
what I'm building.
Great place to be. Yeah. All right. Any other thoughts before we move on to the?
Before we move on to the final thought, where you absolutely destroy me. Yeah, the last thing, just a note of appreciation. I'm glad that Renegade Games is bringing back some of the games from the Avalon Hill line and really putting them back into the zeitgeist again. They did this with Acquire, Sid Saxon's Acquire, which I have next door and want to get to the table. Funko, before they went to Funko, did this with Big Boss. And it's just nice to see some of the quote unquote classic games, even though how can a game be just 20 years old and be a classic? Yeah. I was grateful to get a chance to play it and experience it and kind of see what the magic is about.
All right. Your final thoughts, Michael.
Well, Doug, my final thoughts, I had them right there, but then I went on a little rant. My final thoughts, who doesn't want to build a casino, huh?
Yeah, exactly. And Vegas Showdown is a great auction game, structured bidding and engaging artwork, and it's the right mix of casino mogul and general contractor. So that is our game of the week, Vegas Showdown from Renegade Game Studios.
The School of Gaming. In the School of Gaming, we discuss concepts, keywords, etiquette, and helpful ideas in the world of gaming. This week we ask, when do reviewers go too far?
Always. Let me start this segment off by saying...
Doug, why don't you lead us into this segment?
I will, yeah.
You're going to set the tone.
I started making notes and I could not stop writing. I am so passionate about this issue or topic. And I think the kind of the overarching outline is there's a difference between being critical of a game and being mean. And I think that's where a lot of reviewers cross the line. How about you? Or where is that a good jumping off point for you?
No, it's a great jumping off point. For me, I see it as almost like a Likert scale. Are you familiar with a Likert scale?
No. No.
Where, it's on one end could be 0, and on another end, they're typically going to be 7 or 9, and there'll be descriptors at like 3, 5, right? So it's not a perfect 0 to 10 scale, but you have kind of descriptors, and people can say where they are in between. And for me, I feel like reviewers go too far when they are either cynical off the jump of just, or dismissive. And there's kind of those two ends of the scale where I will often hear reviewers who are dismissive of, how couldn't you think this is the greatest game of all time? How couldn't you give this a 10 out of 10 before even playing it? Versus the cynical, why did 7,500 people ever back this? Why would you ever spend your time doing it? And that's where, for me, those are the ends that I framed it, the cynical and dismissive.
Well, it's like, I hate the idea of reviewers acting as if they're performing a public service by like trying to alert you to games that you should stay away from. It's like
I love how you didn't respond to what I said, Doug. You're just like, okay, Michael, that's interesting. I'm going to keep going down my notes now.
No, that was in line with what you're saying. I think they're part of the exact same group. To your point, if it's like, when you're being cynical and saying somebody should or shouldn't be buying this, and they're ridiculous for either end of the spectrum, is when people get to this idea of like, I'm so noble because I'm telling you how you should protect your wallet. And what games you should stay away from. Because,
that's an assumption that they view all the games like I view the games, right?
Yeah.
And I interrupted you there. I'm sorry. I'll send it right back to you. But I do feel. Go ahead.
I just don't think it's like, you and I have played games that we don't like, right?
Yes,
and
many.
I don't feel like spending more time talking about them. Like, they already got my time. I don't need to give them more time by talking about them on the podcast.
So then, as a reviewer, why don't you tell people the games that you feel are trash? Why don't you trash a game, Doug?
Well, for two reasons. One, I don't want to waste any more of my time talking about it because I've already spent the time playing the game. The other one is, it's okay to not like games, but we shouldn't act as gatekeepers of what a good game is.
Okay.
And why it may be good for somebody else. There are themes and genres that I don't care for. That doesn't mean they're not good for someone. I mean, I don't like horror movies, so why would you want to listen to my take? If I actively hate bluffing games, why would I go on our show or be a reviewer talking about bluffing games and telling you how much garbage it is when I don't even like the genre in the first place?
And I love them.
That type of thing where it's like, you can't be objective. And just because you don't like a game doesn't mean that other people like it. I mean, I hate to break it to some reviewers, but the mass market games that get lambasted all the time in our hobby, there are people that like them.
Yes.
And they love them and play them all the time. And you know what? They may never play the new hotness that people are talking about. Those games have value to people. You just got done talking in the opening segment about Monopoly. It's like, people like those games. You can poo-poo them all you want as a reviewer and say they're not high class and they haven't been developed properly and they're not deluxified enough, or any term that you want to throw in there.
Or they're over deluxified, overproduced, too much of this, too much of that.
I just can't stand that mentality. And I think there is a little bit of blame to go around to gamers that somehow attach credibility to negative reviews. So the idea that if you're not talking negative about games or some games, that you don't have credibility as a reviewer. And it's like, for us, I can speak of, like, this is a hobby for us. We're not getting paid to do this. I'm not going to spend time trashing a game that I didn't care for clicks or to make people think that I have a refined palate of taste, that some standard. I just think that's ridiculous. And I'll just finish off with one point, which goes into that. The third part about, when you asked why we don't talk about negative reviews or why we don't share this stuff, is because the amount of work that goes into a game.
Yep.
Somebody made the decision, and I get really upset when folks attack Kickstarter projects that haven't even finished yet. People have to start somewhere, and to kick people when they're starting, when they had the nerve to get into the arena, to
the courage.
the courage to put their idea out there, and it's like, yeah, is the art the best? No, maybe not. Is the gameplay derivative? Maybe. But you can't compare people that are kickstarting their games to industry giants that are also kickstarting their games that are using it as a pre-order system, essentially. Like, that's not fair. And you're kicking people on a game that you haven't played. You're kicking them on the idea of what you think the game might be. And you're kicking somebody that had the courage to put their game out there in the middle of their campaign while they're trying to raise money for their game just because you don't like it.
And by the way, you essentially force them to send you a preview copy because you're a titan in the reviewer field. Yeah. So it's like, if they don't send you a copy of their pre copy that they've had to go into their pocket for on Kickstarter, you're going to slam them because they didn't send you a copy. And if they do send you a copy, they have to just hold their breath, pray to whoever they pray to, and hope that you like the game enough to say so. And that's where we have friends who are designers and publishers, and it's a small world. And when games get clowned for clicks, that's when I feel like reviewers have gone too far. Yeah. When a reviewer almost feels like it is their duty to make a public service announcement for just how this or how that the game is, and they must let everyone know. Oh man, that's really a time when I feel like reviewers have gone too far.
I think, and especially when videos live on YouTube, and sometimes I think reviewers operate, and it's not really as much of an issue with us because we're not going, we don't talk negative about games. But sometimes I think when people talk negative about a game, it's also under the guise that that person that's watching that video has followed their entire arc of what kind of games, of what games they like and don't like. And the YouTube doesn't work that way. It's like, I could be like, oh, that game looks interesting. And I go there, and then some reviewer is trashing it. And it's like, but I don't know that person doesn't like that type of game. So of course they're going to think it's terrible. But it may have been a great game for me. And so, and without that filter of like, oh, I know that this person's tastes have changed and maybe they used to like these games and now they don't, or vice versa. There's a lot of assumptions going on that somebody just randomly picking up watching a review video is going to know exactly what your tastes in games are. It'd be the equivalent of somebody that's been with us since episode 1 compared to somebody that just started listening to us a week ago and knowing how we talk about games and what we do, and it doesn't live on the internet with all that context. And I think that's frustrating.
So last question, where is the hobby without any reviewers? Maybe not the last question, but a question I wanted to bring to the segment here.
Where is the hobby without reviewers?
Yeah.
Fine. I mean, it's interesting, I guess any hobby that has reviews, whether it's movies or even food critics or things like that, there's a level of perceived objectiveness, but there never is. Like, you can try and be as objective as possible, but you can't really be. And I don't think that game reviewing is any different than any of those other things. If Roger Ebert says, oh, this movie is trash, he has some gravitas because of who he was and things like that. But
do you aspire to be the Roger Ebert of board game reviewers?
No, never. No, God. Or the Siskel or the Roper. To me, it's one of those things where it's like, if you took out the critical part, I think games that are dismissed by the masses would be dismissed naturally. They don't need extra help from from reviewers, right? They would just kind of fade away. Word would spread, or just be like, I'm not that interested. However, if people just talked about what they loved and shared what they enjoy about the games that they like and have no shame in that, we would be in a similar spot, right? People talk about the games that they love. Once it gets to that point where it's mean and dismissive, that's where it really bothers me as a reviewer.
And we're bothered by the same things. There's just one other thing. I mentioned it at the front end of the segment here, but I'm not equally bothered, but a secondary gone too far is a paid review where it's not clear that it's been a paid review. The person absolutely loves the game, but I'm not sure they've played a ton of the game because the game is massive.
Yeah.
And so where I've run into this is as a consumer, whether if it's a Chip Theory games or an Awaken Realms games or one of those, it's a big game. This game is more than $100 just to get into the base version of the game. And I want to know if it's going to work for me.
Yeah.
And sometimes that can be very difficult to figure out on a lot of different levels. Like, am I going to be able to get the rules down? I understand I'll likely only be playing this solo, but is this something that could fit in with my game group or with our channel here? And that can, I'm not going to say I've been burned, but that's been something that was not apparent to me early on in our show that,
sure,
there are paid reviewers out there. There are people who are putting it at 10 and giving a 30-minute review and scripting it out, but I'm not sure they actually really like the game or have played the game a whole lot. So that's the other end that's out there too, where I feel like that's when reviewers go too far.
Yeah, well, it's one of those things where you hear people talk about it's the greatest game of the world, and then you never hear them mention it again. Never shows up in any of their lists, never shows up in a top 10 list, a games of all time list, or anything, end of the year list that people have, and you're like, wait, you told me how great this game was.
Yeah.
And I'd like to think that we here at the Game Schooler podcast approach games from the idea of, we had a cool experience with this game and we want to share it with you. And that doesn't necessarily mean go out and buy it. We never tell you to buy a game. We always say try it if you can and see if you like it.
Since episode 100.
Yes. And but the idea that you may not like it and you may love it, and that's okay. On either end of that spectrum it's okay to not like games and it's okay to love games, but there's no reason to put down the folks that are putting in the effort and the time to publish a game, because you're not doing it. Somebody else is doing it, those type of things. As I think where the balance is, once it gets mean and it's not about, you can say things that you didn't like, but to just dismiss stuff as if it's walking garbage and nobody should ever like this game in their right mind type of approach is way out of line. Any thoughts from the Discord? We would love to hear them. And let us know where you think reviewers go too far, or if they do, or where the place is for. Or
are we just out of line? And are we just being overly sensitive? And do you love negative reviews? We'd love to hear that.
Probably. All right, let's move on to the high five. Every week, Michael and I highlight a list of games we want to play, enjoy, or spread the word about. Everybody loves lists. So this week, we're going to talk about our favorite memory games, which I was kind of nervous going into this one. And I was surprised. First of all, Board Game Geek on their list of memory games is pretty loosey-goosey with their definition of memory. Let's put it that way. I thought I was going to have an entire list of like kids games and weird matching things. That is not the case.
No.
For me. But I did laugh. I was like, what? I'm like really having to think really hard. But I'm like,
there's
what memory
deduction
is
in there, but there's not memory in there.
What is the memory portion of that game?
Where's the component for memory? How there's a memory mechanic there?
So,
yeah.
All right. Do you have a problem getting to 5, Michael?
No. Did you?
All right. No, I've got a couple of honorable mentions. I think you may mention one, but we'll see.
Yeah, number 5 for me is Silver 2019, designed by Ted Alspach and Bezier Games. So you in Silver, you have a tableau of 5 cards that are in front of you, but you only get to see 2 of them that are face up at the beginning of the round, and the other
they're not
3
face up; they're face down.
The other 3 are face down, but you get to see 2 of them.
You can look at them, but they go back.
Okay,
go back. Yeah.
So you've got 5 cards in front of you. The cards on the end at the beginning of the round, you get to see what they are. On your turn, you're going to take a card either from the top of the deck, which you can't see, or the discard pile, and then you can replace one of the cards that are in your tableau, or you can call for a vote. Because once someone calls for a vote, the person with the lowest score wins. Well, what do you mean by that? You've got all these cards, 0 up to, is it 10 or does it go a lot higher than 10, 12, something like that?
I think maybe 13.
But there it is. The number on the card represents a number of werewolves that are out there, and you're actively trying to get your cards down and lower. And what I didn't mention, what makes this game awesome, is that the cards have abilities. So that gives you some actions and some things that you can do. And I think it's that aspect of the abilities and the tension of not knowing when someone's going to call a vote that I really like this game. I have had awful plays of Silver, though, where I'm convinced that, no, that card's a 2. And what? How is that a 9? I thought for sure that was a 2. Even though it's just 5 cards, and there, somebody can call vote as soon as the 5 is reduced to 4, and there's a few other things with it. But that's a good little game that we talked about very early on in our recording the show, because we both had it and played it quite a bit. But that's my number 5, Silver.
All right, my number 5 is a game that it's a kids game. One of a couple on the list, but this is one that I really enjoy because of what it does differently. And the game is called Sleepy Castle. It came out in 2015 from Haba and designer Heinz Meister. But in Sleepy Castle, you have all of the, it's my 12 or 16 tiles face down in the middle of the board, like a regular memory game, right? But then around that group of tiles, you have all of the same tiles in a circle with money in between each one of them. So there's like 3 coins between 2 of these figures, 2 coins between the next one, and then 3 again, and things like that. So you're not necessarily trying to make a memory match outside of, okay, there are 3 coins between the lion and the bear. So I want to flip over the lion and the bear in the center area. And so it makes it really interesting because like you're trying to get the ones with the higher gold in between them, but then at the same time you can be like, oh yeah, I know where the rabbit and the turtle are. They're right there. I'll take that 1 coin, and I know where this and this are. I'll take the 2 coins between those ones. As you kind of fumble around, and it's not specifically, oh yeah, this is right there and the other bear is over here. It's okay, I know the bear is there, but the bear is next to the owl. Where's the owl on the board? And so you're trying to make those connections. And I've had a lot of good luck with it with my kids, and I've enjoyed it as a memory game, which is not necessarily a theme that I enjoy. And I think as most people get older and get trounced by their kids in memory games, I think that's the case. But this is one that seems to work for me, and that's Sleepy Castle.
Awesome, Doug. Awesome. And who did you say designs that?
That is Heinz Meister from Haba.
Awesome. Great.
Did I miss that one?
No. I just wanted to hear you pronounce that designer's name again. That was awesome. Number 4 for me was a game of the week back in episode 71. Certainly more deduction than memory, so I'm gonna have to make a little bit of a crosswalk to the memory component. But that's Dinosaur Tea Party. Designed by Rob Davio, J.R. Honeycutt, and Justin D. Jacobson, Restoration Games. And in Dinosaur Tea Party, you are trying to figure out who's the culprit here. You're trying to figure out it's a family-friendly kids game, and you're at a tea party and trying to figure out who did something bad. Where the memory component comes into, there are 3 different modifiers that come into the game, where somebody always says yes, somebody lies, and whatever the third one is. But in repeated plays of Dinosaur Tea Party, you can really start to figure out and recall back kind of how people have played previously. And as I describe it, I can just see like this is really a stretch. It's more of a deduction game than a memory game. But at my age, when I'm playing this game with my kids, I do feel my brain working. And that's my number 4, Dinosaur Tea Party.
All right. Well, my number 4, we talked about in episode 194. And that was a recent Game of the Week, Dodo, which came out in 2020 from Cosmos. And Dodo is a game in which you're rolling a die and trying to match tokens to the die and putting them on planks, so then you can put them around the 3D mountain to catch the egg, and hopefully, as it rolls down the mountain, hopefully catch it in the boat and whisk it away to safety. And it defies the laws of physics, but it's a speed element to the memory that just puts an added level of pressure to the game that I like. There's not a lot of speed memory games that are enjoyable. This one is the right amount of tension, especially if you're playing with young kids, because they're standing up around the table and they're saying, "Dad, you gotta find the match now because this egg is about to drop." And they're really getting into it, really getting excited. And so that is why it is my number 4, Dodo.
Yeah, that's good. I forgot about the memory component in that. And that does add a level of tension and joy, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. The top 3 on my list all give me the same feeling, Doug, where I am certain I am right about something, and then I'm faced with different information. It's like, oh boy, I did have that wrong. And number 3 for me is Sleeping Queens, 2005. Game Right is the publisher. Miranda Everts is the designer. You know, you got these 12 face-down cards. They're all queens. You're trying to wake them up by playing kings. And one of the wonderful mechanisms about Sleeping Queens is that you can actually put a queen back to sleep, right? So I might tell you, hey, you know, that 15-point queen that you got right there, why don't you go ahead and put that back to sleep? And I'm watching very carefully where you put it back to sleep. So now I think I know where the 15-pointer is going to be. And I play a king card, and I confidently go get the queen, which will give me the points to qualify for a winning number. And I look down, I'm like, oh, I got a 5-pointer instead of a 15-pointer. And it happens, right? So that's my number 3 is Sleeping Queens.
Great choice. Thought that one might be on your list. My number 3 is The Magic Labyrinth, which came out in 2009 from Devere and Dirk Bauman. It's where you're taking your wizard. He's got a little magnetic with a ball at the bottom of your token, and as you move through around the board, there are various
Watch out for the walls, Doug.
Walls underneath that you don't know where they are, and they will knock that ball off of your token, and you need to start over again as you try and work your way through to collect objects. And I love playing that and thinking, this is very confidently, this is the right way to go. And then you hear that thunk and you're like, oh, God, I forgot about that wall there. So that is my number 3, The Magic Labyrinth.
Great choice. Devere is currently publishing it in North America. And if you have a 4 to 7-year-old kiddo and you want to see them get some joy out of you being a fool, Magic Labyrinth is an awesome suggestion, because there's times where you're so confident, like, yep, I'm going to move this right through. Dunk.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, oh, how did I do that? That's great. Number 2 for me is Wandering Towers. Michael Kiesling and Wolfgang Kramer are the designers, and it has Michael Menzel art, published here in North America by Capstone Games. And in Wandering Towers, you are moving wizards around in these tower-like cups, and moving them around the board. And I am just absolutely certain that I'm about to move my wizard into the tower right here, and then I reveal it and it's empty. I'm like, oh my goodness, how did I get that wrong? It's a game that I find to be very just fun, enjoyable, whimsical, moves fast. and is really a joy as you're playing cards out of your hand to try to manipulate the towers. And I often find myself wrong, and yet I enjoy it. So number 2 for me, Wandering Towers.
Yeah, that one, I'm not smart enough for that one. My memory fails me too much. My number 2 recently got re-released in a version, but I haven't played that one. I have the original one, which is Witness, which came out in 2014 from Yastari Games and designer Dominique Bodin. In Witness, everybody gets their own book with information to the whatever case or problem you're trying to solve. And you have a piece of the puzzle, right? And you're taking turns whispering to one another, giving them your information and getting their information. However, it gets to a situation in a 4-player game where the person that you're talking to may have talked to the person that you can't talk to. And so you're trying to get the information in a roundabout way of telephone and remember not only your own information, but what they told you, and then now add on what you just received from somebody else, and then spew that back around the table so everybody has as much of the information as possible to try and solve the puzzle or come up with a solution. And so maybe not the most COVID-friendly game, but certainly a family-friendly game, sitting around a table whispering to one another. And it gets pretty funny sometimes of what gets passed across the table to you that you didn't hear directly. And because you're also trying to summarize. It's not like it's just thing of like, you don't know exactly what information you're looking for. And so it's not just a situation, I have to remember that the guy's tie was blue and somebody else is remembering that it's a beard. It's like you read a little paragraph story and you're trying to pull out the information that you think is important in a way that other people will remember it and easy to pass on. So great little game, Witness.
Question for you about Witness. Yeah. What was it re-implemented as, or what's the new version?
It's still called Witness. I think they just took out, I think there was there's 40 cases in the original. I think they separate them down into like 2 or 4 sets of 10 and 20 cases in each one, as opposed to one giant box.
Because I know the last time this was on your high five, and it was probably about a year ago, I happened to be at Noble Night like the week after, and it was a few $100s. And I thought,
that price has dropped because of the new releases. So not that I'm keeping track, but it has. All right, Michael, what's your number 1?
That's awesome. My number 1 game I played twice this weekend and got trounced by my wife. And it's my number 1 memory game right now, and that's Trio. Trio is designed by Kaya Miyano and art by Laura Michaud, and published here in the U.S. by Cocktail Games. It is a 2024 Spiel des Jahres recommended. There's 36 cards in this deck. All right. And I want to be very clear about this. A full game is 15 minutes. Plays up to 6 players, and based on the player count, you're going to have a set number of cards in the middle. All right. So we play most often in our house at 3 players. So there's going to be 9 cards in the middle. Every other player is going to have 9 cards in their hand. I think that gets us to 36. And in Trio, you can ask somebody to see their high card or see their low card or reveal a card in the middle. And you're trying to get matches. And if you got a match, then you can go for asking to see a third card to get a trio. And the first person to get 3 of a kinds is the winner. Now, the catch is you have to play your cards out in order. So I can't ask to see somebody's 8 if they have a 9 and 10, right? Because the 8 is not their highest card. But remembering who, wait, what was your lowest a 3 or was your lowest a 2? And boy, I swear it's not my age, and I should know. And the other thing that happens, those cards in the middle, I will be convinced, okay, this is going to be the 9, and I reveal it, and no, it's over there. How could I mess that up? There are only 9 possibilities, and I turned over and revealed the 7. So that's my favorite memory game of the moment. The last thing that I just want to say about it, this was one that I almost paid a lot of money to get it imported. because it was one of those, reviewer darling games. I was like, this is going to work in my family. And so when we were at Gen Con last year, and the publisher had it, it was one of those, I cannot wait to get this home. And it just hasn't disappointed. If I look at the log plays, 23 games logged, and probably another dozen that I just didn't log. So it's because it's 15 minutes, Doug, so we're playing it a lot. And because of that, it just really works for me and my family, probably more than what a lot of game groups and folks, but it's my number one memory game. Loving it.
All right. Awesome. My number one, Michael already mentioned in his number 5 spot, and that is Silver. They released several versions of this. The first one is kind of been if you look on Board Game Geek, it's under Silver, but it's also referred to as Silver Amulet. They've added new ones that there's like a B one and a C and a D.
Bullet.
Yeah, as they keep going.
But
the original one is the one that stole my heart. And Michael had it correct in that, there are 5 face down cards in front of me. I get to see any 2 of them at the start of the game. And then
that's what it is. I can see any 2 of them. It's not just the outsides.
Correct. Yes.
Okay. Sorry. That's why you corrected. All right.
Yep.
Apologies.
And then they're all face down. You can then draw a card to swap out of the discard pile, which is funny because sometimes you're taking one that you think is low, and then giving away one that's even lower. Or you can play the top card off the deck, and every suit or every number has an ability. So it might allow you to flip one over permanently. And guess what? You flip over the 2. Well, the 2 allows you to look at one of your cards every turn.
Yeah.
And then somebody might steal that 2 from you so they can look at their cards every turn. And it's just a really interesting game on trying to keep track of what cards you have, ways to improve it, as you go along and try and get that score. And I think if you have 2 zeros face up in front of you, you automatically win the round. And then the person that gets the amulet, whoever wins the round gets the amulet, which they can put on a card to protect it during the next round. So a really cool game, and there's a lot of mixing and matching. Certainly if you get the other sets, you can use the 2 cards from one set and put them in to the regular one and kind of mix them all around. So that's my number 1, Silver Amulet from Bezier Games and Ted Alspach. As far as honorable mentions, I had Turtle Splash, which we talked about in the podcast in the past, and Monster Chase, which is a good little game originally from, I think it's from Scorpion Masqué. It was originally from Yellow, but it's a little cooperative kids memory game where you're trying to find the kids' objects and toys that scare the monsters back into the closet and out of the room. So, any honorable mentions for you, Michael?
Yeah, I had a couple, but then I thought, deduction. So let's see if any are still out there. Captain Flip. I don't know. The memory's not a ton.
Yeah, the only thing I could think of is memorizing what's on the other side of a tile in case you need to flip it later.
For the end, yeah.
Yeah.
That is exactly why I put it on there in an honorable mention.
Yeah.
But man, you'd really have to be playing a lot of Captain Flip, but it is, that is a valuable component. It's just not one that I've executed on, Doug.
Yeah, it's not on the front of the game.
No. So that was one. You?
Nope, that's it for me. All right. Well, remind you to subscribe to the podcast if you aren't already. Follow us on X at GameSchoolerU. Subscribe, watch our videos on YouTube. We appreciate that. If you're looking for a great community to hang out with and chat about games in a good, positive manner, gameschooler.com/Discord to join our Discord there. Next week, we're going to be talking about Hutan. We're going to be talking about expectations in games, transportation games, and Middle Ages. Thank you so much for spending last hour or so with us. We truly appreciate it.
Now get out there and keep gaming.